what's happening. I'm laying on the ground. Or I'm lying on the ground. Listen, I really wanted to start when I said I would, but I just couldn't. I mean, I could have started when I said I would, but actually I said nothing. I just scheduled this for 2. And then I realized I want to start already now. Damn it. Sometimes you just have to rearrange, right? That could work. All right. Yeah. Just have to go through some things. Whew. Hectic times, I'm telling you. Like nobody knows what's real anymore. Who can I trust? What voice can I trust, right? It's like, that's a big one. It's not just who can I trust, it's also how can I trust myself. I think that's like the main topic of this. All right. Just a second. Okay. If I sit there, you will see me. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm running on trust now. I mean, I'm doing that literally all the time, but even more so now. This has to be at my height. Otherwise, I'm going to be really nervous. All right. This is one of those pancakes I made. Just gonna eat this quietly. If I can manage. Yeah, on behalf of my control issues, I had to turn on the live stream dashboard so that I can see if I'm still streaming or not. I don't know. I'm really anxious. But why? So I'm trying to listen to what it is saying inside of me, because I realize I'm really afraid of something. But I also know it's not really my fear. So I'm trying to figure out what it is saying, like what the feeling is, so that I can figure out who it is connected with, because what I'm afraid of makes no sense. That's how fear manifests. Fear from other people can actually enter your life, but with you it will manifest in a different way. I'm trying to get to a conclusion. And what it says is that one reason I'm afraid, or I feel fear that my stream will stop, is actually not so much for myself, but other people are afraid that I will stop streaming. And that keeps them from opening up to really starting to listen to what I have to say, because they're actually afraid that I will stop saying it. Or they're afraid I will just use them. And once I have what I want, I will leave. But the thing is, I already have what I want in that sense. Yeah, I have a woman I can love, and I have a job where I can put that love into. So it's about cause and effect, right? It's what the Merovingian says. Causality. That's what he brings it all down to. Is that true? Is it really about cause and effect? So what I'm struggling with at the moment is I still have 10 euros in cash. And I'm running out of coffee. And I'm not sure whether I should hold on to my habit of drinking coffee or not. And by not sure, I mean it's driving me mad. Because at this stage, I feel like it is important what I choose. And now you can ask the question whether what letting go would mean in this situation. I still have 10 euros and I could use them to go to the shops and buy coffee. Yeah. Now what does that mean? It's a distraction to me at the moment to leave the house for coffee is a distraction because I want to be here, right? I want to be here because here I can be centered. But if I leave the house for coffee, then I leave my cave for something that is actually making me lazy. Let's take today. I woke up and I felt a certain way. I felt anxious. I felt bloated. Now what I could have done to get my body into motion, I could have worked out. But I didn't. Why? Because I thought, yeah, I can just drink a coffee and then I will go and take a shit. And I did that, only I didn't take a shit, because it just won't come out. I already drank quite a lot and now I'm eating to have the same effect. So that I just have more in my stomach and it's just going to push out whatever is inside of it. But maybe I should just put in the work. Because maybe these emotions cannot be pushed out with coffee. Maybe you have to really push through them. But how do you know, right? So here it is. It's the moment of truth. Will you sacrifice your cave, your resolve to continue because you're running out of coffee? Or are you continuing on your own now? Because what it shows me is that I've been using coffee to manage my fear, as some kind of stress relief, to release tension. But a much better way to release tension would be to work out more. To do breath holds, to do planks and hold them. But I really have the feeling I'm so lazy because I always, right now I eat. I'm heavy, I eat. I could have done breath work. Instead I eat. Before I drank a coffee. And this is really a vicious cycle for me. And it's making me lazy, all this eating. It's disgusting. And yesterday I've been trying to watch anime, to be honest. Just, when I saw it, I just had to laugh. I really loved anime. Really loved it. But yesterday I just saw it for what it was. Just stuff children make. There's no depth to it. It's just like children in a sandpit playing with action figures. That's what anime is. Surely there's differences in it, but to me that's all it is. There's not a lot of depth to it. And all the Ghibli movies have been created by Hayao Miyazaki, right? Most of them. But none of these stories are uniquely his. None of them. He always used somebody else's work. He made Heidi, that already existed. Now I'm not sure what he based Princess Mononoke on. Maybe Peter and the Wolf or something. I don't know what he based Nausicaa on. Maybe that one's his, I don't know. It's like taking something that already existed and then making something else out of it. It's the same shit. They are doing with AI. Because they act like, oh yeah, AI is making music. AI is making art. Now we don't need artists anymore. Yeah, that's again the line of thought of the Nazis. You know, we want to destroy the spirit of Schiller. We want to destroy the spirit, the free spirit. And one thing about the free spirit is, or the spirit of Schiller, is that he was a free thinker that expressed his emotions probably then through words. Like that's all artists used to do that. And then people just started to make art because they thought it made them look good. But that's not the real deal. Real artists do it because they have no choice. It's either that or death. Like if you're really, like if art is pumping through your veins and art is love and consciousness, then you do it no matter what. Like this is how I fight. This is how I can criticize. And of course they don't want it. So who do you think are the people that are funding AI? People who want to control
and a press. People that want you to do nothing else but to work for the industry and pay tax. They don't care if you feel miserable. They don't give a shit, because they think they're helping you so that they feel better about what they're doing. I mean, these are tortured people we're talking about. So the question remains, like, what am I supposed to do now in terms of coffee? I still have 10 euros, and earlier I went to the toilet, I sat down, and then I was having like a conversation with myself. And then what was suggested by something, or how I could engage with the feeling, is, hey, why don't you just go and buy coffee in that Turkish shop that you like, and then you come back here. But as I was going through this in my mind, I was posed with another fear. Now I have the fear of not having coffee, because in a way I feel like I'm dependent on it, which is something I don't like, because it makes me dependent. And I'm all about letting go, right? But then the question is it the time to let go? And what does letting go mean in this particular circumstance? You know, people say letting go, but what does it mean? Because if I let go of control, then my feeling would guide me to go to the shop and buy coffee. But on the other hand, it's also controlling. Because if I go there and buy coffee, then I'm intervening for what life, or with what life has in stock for me. And then I hold on to the belief that I need coffee to do what I'm doing. So what does letting go mean? Like, the word itself is so confusing. How am I supposed to do what I'm supposed to do if it's like so confusing? Now the thing is, of course, if I'm not here, who's maintaining the space right now? And I realize that if I leave, what's going to happen is fear is going to creep into the space. And that's what I'm trying to avoid, right? I keep this space occupied so that love can grow from it. But if I leave, because everybody here is very afraid, everyone, including the people in the world. So by staying here and holding the space, I'm holding my ground, right? By keeping it occupied. And when I go now shopping for coffee, then I sacrifice me holding my ground with going shopping for coffee. And that's something I cannot do at the moment. So you see how I got to an answer simply by thinking about it. And trust me, staying here is the hard part. Because at the moment it seems like something really nice to just go for a stroll and just be gone for an hour, just to go shopping and then come back here. But I can feel how fear is already creeping into this place when I only think about leaving. And what does that mean if fear creeps into this? I don't know what people are going to do. Because the situation here is really weird at the moment. I mean, I've just been shouted at by family members, and they threatened to call the police. For no reason at all. Like, I didn't really give them any reason. All I did was I just intervened with how they treated each other, which was with anger and contempt. And because there's a little child involved, that my brother and his wife are raising, I felt like maybe I should help them. And when I entered their apartment and I sat down and I started talking about love and spirituality, he just lost it, started screaming at me. Then they started to threaten me. If I don't leave, they would call the police. That was just me sitting down, wanting to talk to them about something spiritual. This is what happened to them. This is how afraid they are of confronting the truth, which is, we need help. That's the truth for many people out there. I need help. Now, it's really hard for people to ask for help. Well, help is already being given. Like, I'm not the only one who's producing such content, but I'm the only one I'm aware of that does it in the way that I'm doing it. And I realize that this for me is a very delicate situation. I said I'm not going to leave this place until I'm leaving it on my own terms. Now, if coffee is telling me when to leave, then I'm not really leaving on my own terms. Then it's my desire for coffee that's making me abandon this place for 1 hour to spend money on something that nobody actually needs. And that in some way is probably the source of a lot of evil that is happening at the moment. Because I do realize how coffee makes me lazy. Because if I don't feel like working out, I'll just drink a coffee. It gives me, a feeling that's not really good, but for the moment it's good enough. But it also makes my body so toxic because I'm actually not working. I'm not doing this when I'm drinking a coffee, right? And I'm letting it up to the coffee to do what I could do myself. And now the point is that after all that has happened, I don't know what people around me are going to do, because what I realized is that everybody in this house is super afraid of me. Like, they're scared shitless by the fact that I am what I am. Because they don't understand me. I don't talk their language because I talk love and they talk fear. Like, I speak truth and they are lying. And if you are stuck in trauma that you've been lied to yourself about, you don't want people seeing this. Because they know I can see it. They can feel that. So they want to get rid of me. And that's not like something I'm not making this up. This is the feeling I get from the whole place. It's trying to push me out. So I feel like I'm holding my ground here against fear. Because one reason I want to go, I want to have a breather, is because I'm also afraid of actually making this thing go through the wall. But the only way I see at the moment that I can do this is by holding my ground and simply to continue doing what I'm doing anyway. It's like the next step, the next step, the next step. Like, my whole focus is on creating content. And if I cannot create content, I'll find a way that I can. But if I keep drinking coffee, I'm also forbidding myself to progress to the next phase of my life. You see, this is how my mind works, so that I can find a solution for my problem and figure out what it is that I want to do. Now, still the question remains, if I stay here in this room because I'm afraid to leave, then what does that say? You see how this thing gets really complicated, like in terms of what am I supposed to do? Just do something, it says, and see what happens. Because the fear is that if I'm going to leave, people are going to come into my room and take it apart. Just hack everything to shreds because they're so angry with me. Or that when I come back, they just packed away all my things and said, okay, you have to leave now. This is the fear I'm dealing with at the moment. So it's a very existential fear. So the question remains to be, do I need coffee? And the answer is, I don't know. I think I do. While at the same time, it seems to me a bit like a burden to carry my coffee addiction all the way through my life. Like, I have to take responsibility for that. If I want to maintain this relationship with coffee, then I have to apparently go to great length. Because right now, nothing really makes me want to leave this place other than, oh damn, I'm running out of coffee. So if the only reason that I want to leave right now is because I'm running out of coffee, well, it's a pretty bad reason to leave the house just for coffee. But some people would say, no, it's a perfectly valid reason because how can you live without coffee? Well, you can, and I will. But for how long? That I cannot answer. Will I never drink it again? I don't know. What I do know is that coffee makes my breath foul, and it disgusts me the way I smell when I drink coffee, and it disgusts me the way my digestion is depending on coffee. Because digestion isn't so much about just eating stuff and then, getting rid of it on the toilet. This is about emotions, right? We are also digesting emotions, and that's much more what it is to me at the moment. Working with emotions. And one of this emotion is fear. Yeah. Now, I already know, right? Sometimes it's just like, I don't know, right? But maybe if I just sit this one out, the moment has passed, right? If I just manage to stay here long enough until the option of leaving has left, then I can maybe leave more freely. Because now I would be leaving because of the fear of staying and not having coffee. And that's a very stupid, just the image I have in my mind, how long I've been holding my ground here now. How many weeks I just stayed inside, completely focused on getting out of here. And now if I would sacrifice that and end it simply because of coffee, is a really stupid reason. I would hate myself. And as soon as I would leave, I would feel like I actually want to be back here. So why do I have to stretch that out as much, right? Because right now I feel good, actually. So I don't know really where the fear is coming from. But what I know is that I want to do more yoga and I want to stretch more. I know that already. But because every time it gets hard, all I have to do is drink a coffee, I feel like I'm not really working hard enough. I mean, I'm not talking about writing books or producing content. I'm talking more about working hard also physically to really train every day. And when I realize that actually one reason I don't train is coffee, then the solution would be to stop with it. But as long as I have it available, yeah, it's like creating this. Because that's why people drink coffee, to run away from fear. That's what it does. You feel afraid, you drink a coffee, and then you go and work. So actually running away from fear towards work. Now in the meantime, I could just work a little less there, yeah? Because what am I doing when I'm not working? I think about eating or drinking coffee. Now if I could do other things, right? So when I'm not working there, I could be working physically, which is then like doing planks and stuff, which I'm not doing nearly enough because I still have problems with my back, because I'm just not doing my stretching. Because instead of facing my fear in an active way, which is stretching, facing it head on, it's like just holding a plank until you just, I don't know, don't feel your arms anymore or something, right? Just like go to the limit. But who's telling me to go to the limit? Well, I have to tell myself. And drinking coffee is not bringing me to the limit. I've tried it. It's not bringing me to the limit. It's not enough. It's not what I need to feel like I'm a warrior. It's not what I need. What I need to be strong is to prove to myself that I can do this on my own. Yeah, that I can also eat less. You know, fasting is a great way. You know, I've been listening to this audiobook, Siddhartha. And to me, yeah, sure, I don't really get him, but I do. Like, he's more like a renunciate, right? He just wants to leave. Yeah, he's here, for him it's more like a game. Like, humans to him are more like a game. And that's the same way I see others. To me, they all kind of look like children. And they also behave like them. Which the situation that just occurred made it very clear to me. Like, they just go around and they're like, they don't really take anything serious, least of all themselves. And whatever the reason for that is actually irrelevant. Because the fact is, they are the way that they are. And trust me when I say I've studied them long enough, I've tried talking to them, and I've tried explaining things to them, but they just don't want it. No matter what you say to them, they don't want it. Like 60-year-old adults, like men and women, I talk to them, they don't want to listen. They just want to keep making the same mistakes, and then they want to complain about it. And I don't know if that's just being a child, or if it just means being unconscious. I don't know what that is. But I just know that there's no point in talking with them about anything, really. Because they just live in fear. That's it. That's their reality, it's fear. And whatever I do, it just scares them. I just have to be around without saying anything, and they shit their pants. And then they get angry at me. So the only way to keep them away from me is just by ignoring them to a certain degree, right? And to set up really firm boundaries.
And that's very hard to do. Because I don't do chit chat, I already said that. I don't do small talk, but that's all they do. Right? They're just talking about things that are so irrelevant, like weather. Like, it's just running away all the time. All the time. They're just running away from everything that feels a little bit bad. Just run towards the TV, run towards their phone, run towards the mirror to look inside and then complain about how the hair is looking. Run towards the fridge. Yeah, run towards outside. Run towards buying a dog. Run towards I don't know what. They're just running away all the time. And that just shows me they live in fear. And as soon as they feel miserable, they either go to another person or they pick up their phone or they leave the house or they call someone. So every time it gets a little bit too bad, yeah, mothers make their children laugh so that they can feel a bit better. Right? That's like the cycle of abuse. How it starts, right? Mothers that don't know how to hold their own ground, use their child, and squeeze laughs out of it. This is how it is. This is what Christmas is about. It's about giving presents to someone else so that you can harvest a thank you and a smile and a, oh yeah. Yeah? So you're leeching out. You're leeching off on other people's happiness, right? So what is this? How does this connect to mirrors, the self, and your phone? Well, first of all, a mirror is basically anything. And so if you look at the world and you are disgusted by it, then your mirror is certainly dirty. And one way of keeping it dirty is certainly drinking coffee. Yeah, because for whatever reason, coffee is dirty. Now, I've been trying to find out what the benefits are of coffee, but I realize it's bad for the soul. For whatever reason. Maybe it just opens up, I don't know, some kind of, yeah, your energy is just leaking out, which is showing you clearly in the way that it works on your digestive system. You drink coffee, yeah, you often get diarrhea, and the content of your colon is being released prematurely, which also means that you cannot really digest the emotions that want to be digested because you just want to get rid of them. So as soon as fear starts to get too much, instead of using a method such as breath work, such as, like planks or all these yogic postures, such as, whatever it is that actually strengthens your body and your mind, as soon as the pressure gets too much, you go and drink coffee. As soon as the fear gets unbearable, you just run towards coffee, and you don't even realize that by now you are so used to being afraid that this is how you want to feel at all times. You identify with fear, and because this is what I'm saying about mirrors, right? Everybody sees themselves and everybody else. And that's the problem. Because if you use other people as a mirror, where you can look into and see how beautiful you are, then you will only spend time with the people that you think are going to give you a feeling that you're really good. And no matter how terrible you are and how dirty you are, it doesn't matter, because you just spend time only with people who never give you any feedback by saying, should you really eat like this? Because most people
that live in this kind of world, they don't really say anything to anyone. Yeah, they just do their shit and everybody else does their own shit. And that's basically what they like. They don't like to be bothered. They don't like to be told that animals are just being harvested, you know, like nothing. That this is basically Nazis doing this, and that we're supporting it, and that we all said, right, like what happened in World War II was very bad, but we're doing the same thing every day ever since to animals. Yeah, they don't really want to hear this. Yeah, you know, they say, yeah, it's really bad, but then they just pretend they never heard it. So they run back to the lie. And so I've been trying to go to people and tell them the truth about certain things. So I would say, like, the truth about the meat industry, and then they say, oh yeah, that's really bad, and then they just keep eating it. So they don't really care at this point, because they think, well, if I've been eating this all my life already, why should I stop now? Well, because you've got a conscience and somebody just told you this is how it is like, but they still don't want to hear it. Right? So it's like going to someone and saying, yeah, you should meditate, or you should fast, or you should do whatever, and they just say, oh yeah, you know, that means when you're living on a high horse. When you say to yourself, oh yeah, no, because everybody else does it, because who am I, right? Who am I to tell anyone what to do, because I'm just a minority. You know, in a house with 5, 6, or 7 people, I'm the only one who ever says to anyone, maybe you should drink less coffee. Maybe you should work out a bit more. No, why don't you change your diet, because I have the feeling you actually have gout. You know, in a community of 7 people, I'm the only person that says things like this. Everybody else, when they get together for dinner, all they talk about is just the weather, petrol prices, the government, yeah, I don't know, new regulations, news on the pandemic, war, whatever they find in the news, weather again, the weather even from tomorrow or next week, right? And what else? The neighbor's car situation, the neighbors in general, what they saw them doing, people at work, yeah, like problems that arose. You know, this is what people concern themselves with. It's mindless junk. And that's what you call, yeah, gossip. But that's what you also call small talk. And I just don't like it. It's just stupid, because it's just like this unconscious blabbering about shit that nobody gives a crap about. And the only reason why they do this is because they're constantly insecure about not talking in the presence of others. They sit down for dinner, which should be a time where you sit and you eat, but because they're afraid, oh yeah, did you hear this? The neighbors are going on holiday. Oh, I didn't know that. Let's see how the weather would be like. It's just like, my God, like, can you just change? But they are like this. And I've tried changing them, believe me, it's not working. So I can tell you right now, you can just stop. Because all your attempts to change anything are more or less futile. Unless you start changing yourself. And that's basically where you have to start. So what I'm doing is I'm basically using other people as a mirror to look into and say, how do I look in relation to this? So I go around, I say always, yeah, drinking coffee is bad. And when I see people drinking coffee, I tell them coffee is bad. Yeah, I make artwork and that says, drinking coffee is really bad. And I know it is because it's making me lazy, just like smoking cannabis. If you just smoke cannabis for smoking cannabis, it's gonna make you lazy. But if you smoke cannabis because you want to reflect and turn inward, well then, it's going to strengthen you. But you also have to stop using cannabis for a while. And I think I'm now on the verge of stopping with coffee for a while. And so that brings me closer to the point of the mirror. So I look at other people and then I look at how their life is going and the choices they make, dietary choices, but also the kind of thoughts they have, the kind of behaviors and habits they have. And then I look at what they're talking about, like the kind of things they say to each other, they say to other people. And then I realize they always say all these things, but they never do them. Like they say, yeah, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that and blah, blah, blah. But they do all these things themselves. And now, all I can do is I can just stop, right? I can go around telling people to stop watching porn. You know, this is what some people do. They don't manage, and then they just say it online. It's like this idea of I'm sacrificing myself for others. You know, I'm just telling them that stop doing it, but I actually want to stop doing it, only I don't manage. And I got to that point because I put into my art on Instagram, I always put the hashtag #NoFap. And I started doing it and then I stopped because I felt phony about it. But when you stop, it means you're giving up. Because it doesn't matter. I just keep saying it, but I also keep making new choices every day. So I keep saying it, I don't want to masturbate, I don't want to watch porn. And then I produce content and suddenly I have the feeling I have to live up to this. I have to live up to these ideals that I represent. Because now I've said it to so many people, you know, I also feel I have to do it then. So it's like pushing myself to the next level. And so I just keep putting that in, #NoFap, because I'm still, right? I'm still sometimes on the verge of collapsing. And I don't think it's like really that bad. It's just I don't really want to do it anymore. Because I've collapsed so many times already. So what's the point? Like, what's the point to still collapse into pornography? That's not gonna get me closer to being a father. It's just gonna get me further away from it. Because I'm just manipulating myself all the time to be weak so that I have an excuse to be lazy and weak and to sit around and watch movies. Yeah, and that's the really challenging part, because what I feel is that coffee is really making me really, really dumb. But also it's like closing my heart every time I drink it. And that's the same feeling I have about masturbation. I actually sometimes have a feeling here in my chest. Why? Because when you drink coffee, the energy that is supposed to rise from your root chakra, right? The energy that is supposed to rise and then flow through your heart chakra, right? It's like the root, the fear, and all of that stuff rising up, goes through your heart chakra, through your throat, third eye, yeah? When you drink coffee, you stop the energy from rising. It's starting to rise, you drink coffee, it falls down again. So when the energy is rising, you either drink coffee or you masturbate. Which means you can never outgrow yourself, ever. And that's then the mirror that I have. Like, I can look in the mirror that's hanging on the wall and I could say, You know, I can tell myself that I look very good today. Oh yeah, oh you're so pretty. Oh ha ha ha. Yeah, and then I can like look at my eyebrows and say, oh yeah, they look really pretty. And then I can pluck hairs off my eyebrows and then I can say, oh yeah, now I like how I look. But you still feel terrible. And if you would really look at how people look like that put on makeup, they look stupid. Like underneath that, they just look dead and boring and pale. And then they use makeup to cover that up so that they look a bit more extravagant. Yeah, so that's just a way to cover up stuff. And the same happens when I go around telling people what they should do to change. It's the same thing. I'm trying to cover up my own shit by telling people what they should change, instead of changing it myself. And then I feel good about myself, but I actually just used someone else. And that's the real habit that you have to change. To tell others what they're doing and just do it yourself without saying anything to anyone. You're just doing it, and when you made it a habit to do it, then you can tell people. Or then they will come themselves, you know. Just don't tell them anything unless they come and ask you. And that's what I like also about streaming live or just recording content, because I'm simply saying it, but it's your choice whether you want to hear it or not. Right? I'm not, you know, it still annoys me for sure when people click on my live stream and they watch for 3 minutes and then they leave. Yeah, it pisses me off. Why does it piss me off? Because fear really annoys me. Like, people who are afraid just piss me off. Because that's the whole system. It's based on fear. And that's just a reason to continue with what I'm doing. Just because it makes me so angry how afraid everybody is and how ignorant they are that they create this for themselves. And I'm the same in some ways, right? Although I would say I'm a little bit further. Yeah, a little bit or a lot further. Because I actually do think about these things consciously. Why I'm doing things, what's the root, what's the real reason behind me wanting to go and buy coffee. Now, I cannot say at the moment what I'm going to do, right? At the moment, I'm not very responsible. Not about everything. And I don't know if maybe getting that coffee will actually help me in the long run. Because in a way, it does help me to simply keep going, right? Because that's what it's supposed to do. It just helps you to keep going. But I also realize, because I do hit that point often where it's just too much and I can't handle it. And then I rather drink coffee and suddenly, wow, okay? I often have that I want to stand there and work and I can't. And then I drink a coffee. You see how it's making you lazy. If I wouldn't drink the coffee, what else would I do? Well, I wouldn't sit down or stand up and work. What else would I do? I would probably first have to do something else so that I feel the way that I need to feel in order to work. So I would strengthen my body first, because one reason I don't manage to stand there then and feel good about it is actually because my back is terrible. It's in a terrible condition. And this is where all the fear accumulates. So no wonder I'm afraid, because I haven't done any stretching. So we think, oh, I'm afraid. No, you're just drowning in comfort. You're just drowning in comfort because you sit all day. You know, I don't care if you're inside or outside, but you sit all day on the couch and watch TV and read books. no wonder you feel miserable, and no wonder you use others to make yourselves feel better. Because what you could do in the time where you do nothing, or where you just would watch a movie normally, or pick up your phone, you could stretch, you could work out, you could strengthen your body, you could learn how to do crochet, you could teach yourself some new skills, find out new ways how to move on all fours or something, learn how to meditate, learn how to sit in the lotus seat. You know, that's a tough one. As soon as I stop working, I start shitting my pants. So I constantly drink coffee. And then I'm also shitting my pants, if you know what I mean. So I'm trying now to find other ways. So I've ordered ceremonial cacao, because I have looked at myself through other people adequately. I look at them, I look at what they say, and I look at what they do. And I realize as soon as they are with other people, they're like, oh. Yeah, and when they feel bad, they don't come and say, hey, I acknowledge I screwed up there. No. Instead, they talk about prices for food. And I'm at this point now when somebody does that, tries to use me to make them feel better about what they did, I just say, leave me alone. Or I just say nothing, or I just stay away from them. So this is like a real turning point of my life. And to me personally, it helps me to sit down here and just record this whole mental process of talking about it. And that's also why actually I'm not really concerned about who comes in to listen to this, because I know that this is my self-therapy, right? But also, I could do this without the camera, but the camera is also, it helps me to stay in the observer, because that's still a mindset that I'm trying to, right, to always be, not always just be the observer, but right now it helps me. Why? Because I still feel like watching porn, and I still feel like masturbating. But as long as I'm sitting here and I'm holding this space, I cannot do that. And that's why live streaming at the moment is also beneficial to me and to where I'm trying to get with in my life. Because it's like what Ren said, you know, it gives me a purpose to rest in, right? Sometimes it's nice to see how other people describe whatever they're doing, and then to pick up on that. Because, you know, I don't figure everything out by myself. I don't have all the words. So sure, I do use other people's words. Also, one reason why I'm reading Howl's Moving Castle at the moment, or recording it, is because I feel like I need something else. And when I read it, I basically reflect on everything that is being described in the book onto myself. I reflect it back into myself. I read it and then I see myself as every character in the book. And I try to figure out whether I'm clinging or holding on to something. And so at the moment, I could drink another coffee when I would feel like I want to defecate. But what I could also do is I could what? I could drink a lot of tea instead of drinking a coffee. I could drink a lot of tea and then use an irrigator to cleanse my colon. Because apparently something's stuck in there. And I want to get rid of that. But what is it? Well, it's emotions. And if it's really stuck in there because I've been eating like cheese and sugar and gluten, yeah, and yeast, there's a lot of shit stuck in your colon. So sometimes if you want to cleanse that, you just have to flush it out. But instead of drinking coffee so that you can go and take a shit, you could stop drinking coffee and just start working for being able to take a shit. You know, some people, they get into this habit that every day they drink a coffee and then they go and take a shit. But that just keeps you trapped in this like insane loop. And then you're wondering why you have diarrhea, and you're wondering why you're afraid and why you're anxious. Well, this is what coffee is creating in yourself. It's a very bad habit. So if you don't manage right now, to just stop with coffee, then you can do what I did, or what I'm still doing, but I mostly did it. And that is just paying attention, being observant, right? You start to become the subject of your own research. So you look at, what am I doing? How does it make me feel? How did I feel now? And how do I feel after I drank a coffee? And then you know, if you just keep it like this, then you're not going to gather a lot of new insight. So what you can do is then, okay, for 1 week, I'm going to not drink coffee at all, which probably seems impossible to most people, just like not eating sugar or not eating bread. You know, people always say, I could never do that. Why? You know, why do you hold on to the things that you eat? Why do you hold on to them? Just because it made you feel good once doesn't mean it's actually useful. Because what's good, it's just different than how you felt in the time that you were eating it. Yeah, so maybe somebody died in your family and you felt terrible, and then you started drinking coffee because in the time you felt so depressed that the only thing that helped you to get off the couch was actually drinking a coffee. Well, now it's 10 years later and you're still doing that, which means you're still running away from the feeling that you felt when somebody died. Which means that coffee is actually your method of running away from how you truly feel. And you can keep doing that all your life, but spiritually, you cannot grow out of this. So that's what it means to let go. So you look at the habits that you have in your life, and you may even look at other people that mirror to you what the consequence is of living like this. You know, I see it in my father. He's drinking coffee all the time. All the time. And he never works out. Because if he feels bad, he just goes and gets his shot of coffee. And he does that 12 times a day. Yeah, and then in the evening, when that's it, then he just drinks alcohol-free beer and watches TV. You know, that's his way of running away from whatever he tries not to feel. It's just like keeping yourself busy, going to the toilet and taking your phone with you. That's just the next level of constantly controlling what is happening, always being reachable. So I know how this feels like, and I sometimes do it myself. I go to the toilet, I take the phone, and then I play chess. Why am I doing this? Do I have to play chess? No. Could I have played chess in my room? Yes. So why am I taking the phone to the toilet? Because I have the feeling I have to make the most of my time and play chess on the toilet so that I don't waste time taking a shit. Now this is a mindset that's just really crazy. It's just a really crazy mindset. If you think about it, because you're so desperate to use all the time that you have for something that's like super important, that you can never relax, you can never just sit on the toilet and take a quiet moment where you just take a shit. And this is of course also where coffee connects to. I mean, you can literally, that's also control, right? If you control your toilet habits with coffee, that means, you know, I want to know that at 8 in the morning I'm drinking a coffee and then I'm going to take a shit, and then I don't have to take a shit later during the day. You know, this is how people have to manage their schedule, because when they are then on the road or talking to customers, they don't want to be bothered with taking a shit. Well, then you could just eat less. Could be a solution, because if you don't eat, you don't have to poop. And that's then the idea of fasting, of course. But if you don't poop, then your body is still getting rid of things that will leave through the colon, amongst others. But if nothing's coming through to push it, that stuff just stays in your colon, and then it's just going to accumulate, and it's going to have you fart a lot and all this kind of stuff. So what you could do is buy an irrigator and then cleanse your colon so that your body can also get some rest. You know, I can feel it. I'm not fat, but I can feel that I'm bloated, really bloated, and that my body is working very hard to keep up with all the stuff I'm putting into it. And this is when I have to say, okay, I'm actually feeling that something actually needs to change, because everybody knows that, but they're just ignoring it. They just continue until it's so bad that they have to go to the doctor. And they actually like going to the doctor, because then somebody looks at you, somebody takes care of you. You know, that's what I mean when I say they're all children. They're all children. When they have a problem, they run to the doctor. Can you help me? I have a problem. Yeah, let's look at you. Stick out your tongue. Yeah, we have to do an X-ray. They don't even care that the reason the doctor wants to do an X-ray, for no reason at all, is because he gets money when he does that. He doesn't suggest an X-ray because he can help you better then. No, he just gets paid for it. Yeah, the doctor said I have to have an MRT. Yeah. Ka-ching! I don't know how many thousands of euros they get for that. You know, they bought the machine. Now they have to pay it off. So they're gonna use it. And what the cost is of having been hammered with the amount of, I don't know what kind of rays they're using. But what I surely can say is, what they say is fluid might just be energy. You know, sometimes they say, yeah, I see here something, we have to do surgery. Because nobody really understands what's on these things. It's an image of what? I don't know. And then they just say, yeah, I see something here, we have to do surgery. You know how you could also resolve that? Probably in different ways. You know, I cannot say everything because I have to say I'm not a healthcare official. So all I say here is only my opinion and simply how I do things. This is what I believe, right? So you have to say these things or people take a piss on you. You know, that's just my opinion, because if I have a problem, I just see how I want to deal with it myself. And I have educated myself adequately with Eastern medicine, which is diet, which is you go to a doctor. You know, if it's like a proper doctor and you go there and you have a migraine, he's going to ask you how your digestion is. And then the doctor says, the patient says, what does that have to do with anything? Well, how is your digestion? And then you probably say, well, when I drink a coffee at 8 in the morning, afterwards I go and take a shit. And then the doctor says, so you actually have constipation. And what is the constipation? Well, it's probably the diet, but it's also emotional constipation. And the reason I say these things is because that's what my feeling is telling me. You know, I sometimes felt really bad. I felt a lot of emotional chaos in me. A lot of stuff felt like building up. Because I also go through my emotions. It's like a process for me. And often when I'm done with it, you know, I really work through these emotional processes. I work through trauma, I work through all kinds of things. And then I make art with it, I make music with it. I talk about it, right? So I'm constantly like bringing stuff to the surface, yeah. And at the end of the process, often I start sneezing a lot, or I start to feel like a bit sick. Symptoms of what we say is sickness was actually cleansing to me. Yeah, and then I go to the toilet and I often defecate a lot. Because then my body is also actually digesting emotions, because it's energy. And if you would go around and you talk to people about this, they say, yeah, of course. But I can see how they're still stuck. They're still in the same place. They still treat their dogs like shit. They still use other people to make themselves feel better. They still do all these kinds of things. Play their little games with others, control them. Yeah, if you don't like me, I'm just gonna ignore you. And I say, well, have a blast. Yeah, then at least you can spend more time with the people who appreciate the way you use them to make yourself feel better, right? Go have a blast and do that. You know, really have a blast. Yeah. Because you don't actually want to work to feel better. Because you're just lazy. For whatever reason, I don't care. Because I grew up in the same place as many other people. I had the same position many of them had. But I made different choices because I saw how they were doing the same thing and I was copying them, and I saw the effects it had on their lives. And then I said, I'm just gonna change that, because it's stupid to just do what everybody else does. And that's why mirrors, the self and your phone, is certainly speaking about, well, mirrors, as in other people, to see yourself in everything. Yeah, if your room is a bit messy, then that's yourself. And if you feel bloated in a certain way, then that's also yourself. But yourself is also underneath that. And that's what the cleaning the mirror is about. Because your body is also a reflection of yourself. And if yourself is dirty or covered in dirt, then you have dirty habits. Then you like to overeat, you like to smoke, you like to watch dirty movies, yeah, with sexual content, with a lot of breasts and stuff, with a lot of sex, with violence, yeah, or these kind of comedies, that just are supposed to make you laugh a lot. This is all your mirror that shows you you're dirty. And you may think, oh my God, I'm dirty, is that bad? Well, everybody is. It's the whole place we've created. Because we destroyed nature to build these kind of weird buildings. Buildings. It's just like, it's a non-word. It's just, what does it even mean? Like, so we destroyed nature and tried to be better than it. Like, we try to be better than life itself. How does, how do you even think that's gonna work? How do you want to be better than life? Life is life. It's like birth and death, and then in between life happens. It just happens all the time. How do you want to be better than something that you're a part of? Yeah, I'm different than all of you. I'm different than all of these animals. I'm better than an animal, so I can control it and I can put a leash around its neck. Yeah, and I can breed it so that it looks the way I want it to look. So I'm better than nature. Oh yeah? Just sounds to me like you have some kind of God complex. Like you want to do what life does, only what you fail to see is that life does it much better. And it doesn't need money for it. It just does it. It's not concerned about what it's gonna get back. It just creates life for free, basically. And then humans come and they say, I'm also gonna create life, but I'm gonna charge you 2,000 euros for that puppy. Oh yeah. And then people are willing to pay that. And then they can use that puppy to let out all their frustration on that. Because they can just push it around as much as they want. The puppy just stands there and wags its tail. And then you feel better about yourself. This is how it works. This is how people do it. This is why they have dogs. Just to make themselves feel better and feel like they can actually control something, right? I put your food in the bowl, but you can only eat when I say eat. Yeah, that's how you condition also children in school. You only speak when I tell you to speak. You have to sit until I say you can stand up. Yeah, and you can only eat when I tell you now you can eat. All right. In nature, life would be a little bit different. You would get up and then you would eat when you're hungry. That's like the philosophy of Zen, right? When hungry, eat. When tired, sleep. So you do what you feel like doing, which means that what you do is based on a feeling. Now I feel tired, and so I sleep. And when I feel, I don't know what, happy, maybe I dance. And now we've created this kind of weird system where when you're tired, but somebody tells you have to work now, you drink a coffee. And then instead of sleeping, you continue to work. And then at the end of the day, you're so confused that you don't even want to sleep anymore. You have this also with children, when sometimes they're so tired that they cannot see straight anymore. They just throw a tantrum. Why is that? Yeah, that's a bit more difficult to explain, I think. Why do children throw a tantrum? Oh wow. Okay, that's like holding on to being awake, right? holding on to being awake. It's basically also a bit like being greedy. Greedy with seeing what's going on. Maybe even a lot of people are really nosy, if you know what I mean. Yeah, they want to know what the neighbors are doing. Because every time also when you wake up, it's like a reset. You don't know what's going to happen. Right? Maybe also for children nowadays, why they don't want to fall asleep is because the child needs to feel safe. And it needs to be surrounded by someone who's like taking care of it. And I think that in this society, everybody wants to do other things. For them, having a child is, nobody says that. They say, oh yeah, I love him, I'm a loving mother. Yeah, but what they often think is, because they're really selfish, like everybody, oh yeah, the child is keeping me away from other things that I could have done if I wouldn't have had children. So they say they really love you, but a part of them sees it as a burden to be a parent. And of course, the child will feel that by being left alone whenever it closes its eyes. So in more, you could say, tribal communities, the child is always with its mother until the child can walk on its own. And it's being carried around the whole day. So it never is alone. But in this kind of weird system, people are being told, yeah, when your child is being born, yeah, after 3 months, it should learn to be alone in a room. And they do that, actually. Yeah, and then they make a room for the child on its own. And as soon as the child starts to sleep a bit longer, they just put it in there. So that mommy and daddy can, be selfish again about their love. Also because they're probably ashamed of having sex when the child is in the room, which is something that each of us has to think about, and which probably is better to just keep to themselves, right? Because in this kind of weird system, if you would sleep with your wife while your child is in the same room, they would say that's weird. They would say that's like almost like child abuse, right? They would say you're a weirdo and a creep. Yeah, I don't really know about that. I think to a certain age, like where else are children supposed to learn how sexuality works? I think that how it used to be was that men and women were openly doing this. But the problem is, if you go around and do this with your children and you openly show to them how you make love, and they would go to school and they would say that, teachers would be very alarmed. Or another child then goes to her parents and she said, you know what so-and-so said? Her parents are just having sex in the living room. What do you mean? While the children are there? Well, that's wrong. They shouldn't be allowed to do this. And then everybody just says you're a weirdo. And then that's that. And then the authorities come and they take your child away. Goodbye. So it's very weird, isn't it? So the question is, I think you have to make up your own mind of what you think is right, but then also realize that we live in a twisted world where everybody is sick and everybody wants to control other people because it makes them feel powerful. And that means you have to be aware of this. And that means, you know, whatever I'm going to do in my life, in my family, you know, I'm going to keep it mostly to myself, and then very consciously decide what I'm going to share. Even with people who would think of themselves as your family. With anybody. Like, there are things I would just not talk to anybody about. That would just be something between me and my wife. That's just how I feel about it, because people are sick with wanting to be loved, and they are sick with fear, and they are basically willing to do anything, even betray a friend's trust, by just speaking about what that friend just told you. And that's crazy. And the reason they're like this is because they're traumatized, which is not an excuse, just a fact. Just something you have to understand. I'm just working through my fear of not having coffee. But I also realize that it's the source of my fear. So if I keep feeding that, I run away from that fear. I just want to face it. Because I've been drinking coffee for a while now. It actually becomes a part of you. And this is my leading over to the phone. Right? So I told you before already that I made a cover of crochet, with crochet, for my phone. Because I believe, like, look at this thing. It has a black screen. And Ramdas said, electronics capture your consciousness, and I can agree to that. As soon as a phone is in the room, your mind starts to wander towards it. The more apps you have on it, the greater the pull. If you have internet turned on, the pull is even greater. And this thing will suck you dry. Yeah, and I see parents that push their children in these wagons, and at the same time they're on their phone. They're walking outside, and this has something to do with paying attention, being present, and what it means to pay attention. Well, focus is directing the flow of energy. Now, if we take everything I've said until now, which is surely a lot, and just try to bring it into context, so mirrors the self and what I said about children, why children throw a tantrum, and why children try to stay awake. Now, when a child, let's say a baby, right, falls asleep because it's comfortable, and then the child wakes up and it's now alone, then the little child has to lie there awake and hold its own space. Which means it would have to hold the ground, but it cannot do this. When an adult is in the same room, the adult channels energy. It holds the energy upright in the room. That's what we call in spiritual terms, you know, you're holding the room, you're creating and you're maintaining a room. Now, in a family, you do that for the children as an adult. But you only can do that when you're also around, right? You're making sure that nothing really bad happens, just by being present and focusing on love. Now, what happens with a child when it learns every time I fall asleep, there's somebody with me and I feel comfortable and cradled, but every time I wake up, I'm afraid. Every time I wake up, I'm alone. Sometimes I may be cold and I'm afraid. But surely I'm alone. And nobody comes until I start screaming. Nobody comes until I start crying. Only when I cry do I get what I want. This is basically how people these days are raising children. Yet they having a child and the child is 4 months old. So they feed the child, then they put it to sleep, and then they go to a family dinner and they have this weird kind of remote control Wi-Fi camera receiver, which is like the modern version of the baby phone, which now works over Wi-Fi and which has a camera directed onto the child so that they can move away from the child but still look at it from the distance. But now you have to understand how this works. The mother leaves the child to be with the family and eat with them. You know what the mother could do? The mother could sleep next to the child or clean the room or something, whatever. But instead, the mother leaves the child alone, goes to the family, eats with them, and checks the baby phone Wi-Fi camera thing every couple of minutes. You know what that means? The child is being denied love and is being sent fear instead. What does that mean? If you keep sending the child fear like this, it will enter the child's dreams. This is how energy works. Yeah? The law of attraction. You feed the child fear and the child wakes up and starts crying, and then you say, there you have it, the child is crying, I'm gonna go to it now. Yeah. And then you go to it and you feel like, damn it. Where am I supposed to be? Am I supposed to be with my child? Or am I supposed to be with my family having dinner? Well, you're a mother now and a father, so your priority is with the child. And no child has to be at family gatherings or left alone until a certain age. So the focus when you're having a child should be on the child. But the only way that works is if you also know how to focus on yourself and how to know how to and what to give yourself. So you need a strong mind to be a parent. And very few people of the people that I meet are strong in any way. They're all afraid, they're all running around, they're all overeating, they're all watching too much TV, they use their phone as a way to run away from themselves. And so your phone is also a mirror of yourself, right? My phone is really empty. I have basically almost no apps on there. It's just the stuff that is pre-installed. And then I have one moon widget just to see when the next full moon is and when the next new moon is, because I work with that. And I have Telegram installed, but mostly Wi-Fi is off. I don't have mobile data. I also made sure that people stop contacting me all the time, just by being overly intense and honest, and most people are afraid of that, right? Most people are afraid of the truth. So they keep pretending it doesn't exist. And if you tell it to them, they try to twist it around, which is really annoying. Which brings me back to the point of stop trying to help people. You know, sometimes life just has to get really bad for them before they say, I need help. And if their idea of getting help is having surgery, well, then that's their choice. You know, by now they should know you exist and how you see life, and whether or not they want to open up to this should be their own choice. And if they don't open up to it, then they have to deal with the consequences, which is, I gave you enough chances. I told you all things about diet. I told you all things about how important exercise is, and that if you drink coffee, it makes you lazy. I've told you this for years. You still keep doing that. Well, I'm just gonna wait. And just, actually not, I'm not gonna wait. I'm just gonna live my life. And if you have problems in yours, then you will surely find a solution. And this is how I can live best with also how other people are. Because I want to be focused on living my life and not on running after people that want me to run after them, because then they feel loved and appreciated and taken care of. And that's why I mean, most people that are already at an advanced age in this society are traumatized children because they are stuck in their childhood trauma and they can't get out of it. And I've tried finding them in there, but all I find is trauma and methods to run away from that. And that is confusing, because we have been told if somebody is a certain age, he's your superior and all that. But the way I see it is, age has nothing to do with anything. You can have a child that is consciously more advanced than a 70-year-old man or woman, right? You can have a 40-year-old man that is stuck in his trauma and appears less mature or wise than a 7-year-old girl. Of course, that's before the girl has been traumatized over and over again and being told that she's only a child and that her opinion is worth nothing, right? Because now she's being trampled by everybody who wants to be like, I'm an adult. Why don't you act like one then? Because adults technically don't, it's just a word, it doesn't exist. It's just people who want to seem like, you have to call me daddy. Why? You're no father to me, right? To me, when I speak about a father, then that's like, yeah, do I call that God? Or do I call it life, right? At one point I said I renounce my worldly parents. I'm not going to really say that to them, but that's just how it is. To me, they're not really my parents, because they didn't really teach me anything that I didn't have to forget again. So I learned through life. And that's my mother and my father. And that's what you have inside of you, and that's then the self, right? Yes, so when you look at your phone and you look at all the messages, first of all, you're going to realize you're holding on. You have a problem with letting go. Now, one of the first things you could do is simply start deleting all the chats. Delete all the backups, delete all the images that people sent you and you sent to people. Delete all the messages that you have on your phone. Just delete them all. Yeah. yeah, sure, if there are things where you think this is important, I have to keep it, I don't know, right? I just delete everything. I delete the whole chat, and then I wait till somebody else writes me something. That's a challenge, because some people, they write messages to people so that people answer them.
Now the next point.
Emails. Yeah, that also has to go. Like, sure, there are some emails which are important. You could, of course, print them, or you just keep them in there. But most emails can just go. It's like all this advertisement and whatever. Also, if you have an email account where you receive a lot of spam, it's probably wise to look for one that I pay €1 per month for my email provider, and that is called posteo.de. And it's €1 per month. I have 1 GB of storage, and you can sync everything. You can have 2-factor authentication. They say they're somewhat green. I don't know about that, right? But the experience I have is that I receive very little spam, and I can set up my own spam filter where I say if emails with those words come, I just want to discard them. You can make your own filter rules, basically. That also would filter your emails, and you can then save the email in a certain folder if you want that. If you say emails I received from this person are just going to go to family, and this is more like friends or colleagues or whatever, and this is more like business related, right? You can do these things. But I keep my email account as empty as possible. I don't keep bills. If I've paid something and I decided I will keep it, then I just delete it. I just delete the invoice and the email and all the like DHL tracking links and stuff. I just delete all of these things. Yeah, I delete all conversations. If somebody sends me an email, I read it, I respond to it, I delete it. I also don't save sent emails unless I feel like saving it. But some email providers have this option where you say don't save when you're sending something. Yes, so that's how I do it. Every email I send, I just delete it. And when it gets saved as a draft, I make sure to delete that as well. So I'm very about keeping myself clean and also keeping my email account clean. That to me is something I feel like is very important. Very important indeed. Because this is basically your mind. And so if you, like most people, have a phone, it's probably time to look at it, to look at what kind of apps you have on there, for what you use them, when you use them, and how often you actually spend time with your phone. Because your phone is not giving you love, and it's not actually building anything. Which means you probably have to work on that. So the way I worked on that was I simply started to observe myself. I realized that when I have apps installed, like WhatsApp, that I feel super anxious about answering messages, receiving messages, like I even felt anxious about receiving messages, but I also felt anxious about not receiving them. So my mind was constantly thinking about sending or receiving messages. And that's an escape plan. That is an escape plan. Why? Because you feel anxious that's a feeling that arises. It's actually not the message, it's not the receiving or the sending of messages that makes you feel this way. That's just where you project it onto to have an easy solution ready, right? It's like, oh, I feel anxious and now my child started crying. Yeah, probably your child started crying because you left it alone in the room and you were afraid something would happen. You were afraid it would drown in its sleep, so why didn't you just stay with it? So that you can respond to the child's needs. No, instead you're forcing yourself to leave your child because you think that makes you look like a good mother or something. No, it makes you look like a selfish mother who thinks it's more important to sit with people and eat than to be with her child when the child sleeps, where it actually needs protection. That's just how it is, because if you feel bad about leaving your child, which your child phone Wi-Fi camera thing clearly shows, then why are you doing it? Because probably you want to please other people. Yeah, you're drawn between I'm a mother and I'm a daughter and a wife or something. But your husband should probably say, hey, we just have had a newborn child. We don't have to join any family meetings because this is about us bonding and not running away to parents or something, because now we are parents. Now our focus should be entirely on the child. But most people cannot do this because they're selfish, because they've been brought up in a society where you say, if I have a car, I look good. Yeah, that's selfish, because for you to have a car so that you can feel better about yourself, other people had to work hard and other people have to breathe the toxic air that your car is producing. Which doesn't mean you cannot have a car, it just means that it has consequences. And to then boost your self-value with the fact that you're having a car just shows what an idiot you are. And that just sums up 90% of whatever Western society is, or the ideals of that, of society in general. It's just like using other things to make yourself feel better. And if you're doing that with your phone, then you could say now, or you should even, or probably must, I'm trying to get away from this, and it's going to take a lot of time. Well, what I did, I crocheted this bag, so it looks more natural. Plus, if I want to get to it, I actually have to put it out of this thing. It also is something natural that kind of dampens the way these rays, because if I hold it in my hand, I can feel already there's pain in my hand. This is also what's blocking your energy from flowing. This phone, it's actually toxic energetically. So we have to do things to work this stuff out of us, because this radiates up until here, and from there it keeps radiating everywhere. It's the way you sit, you hold yourself. Yeah, it's just like that. It's stealing you from life. And that's why this is a draining machine. It drains you to feed, I don't know, companies that have no heart, that just live in fear and anger. So what you do is, you can put it on silent. I usually don't put it on flight mode, simply because I put it on do not disturb, because I still want to know if somebody tried to reach me, which basically never happens. But if it happens, then I want to be able to call back. So I have it often on do not disturb, but nearly not often enough. And maybe I should just put it always on this, so that I can just relax into, once in a while I check my phone, and then I see if somebody reached me. But to get to that, I have to be able to forget about it. Which brings me back to this case. because it just looks like a natural object. It's green and brown, which blends in perfectly with my room. If it's on Do Not Disturb, I hear nothing, it doesn't vibrate, it doesn't give off any sound, nothing. And then I can take this phone and put it somewhere where I actually don't see it. This is like cheating myself. So what do? I don't know, put it under a blanket. Yeah, just put it somewhere and then forget about it. But then you do other things instead. You draw something, you go make tea, I don't know, you sit there and meditate, and then whenever the phone comes into your mind, you just accept that it's there and just breathe through it. Just breathe through it. Oh wow, this is how badly I want the phone now. This is how afraid I am of what I'm feeling, right? And then the phone comes back, and 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 you're like, damn, I'm really afraid, mate. Like, I'm really using my phone to jerk off all the time. Oh, and then you suddenly sit straight and you like stretch out your chest, like, wow, I'm really tense, am I not? And then you feel like anger, madness. Yeah. I have to eat something. Yeah. Oh my God, somebody called me. I just think I just heard a beep, beep. I just heard the message sound. Did it vibrate? And then you just learn to simply sit. I mean, what you can actually do is you put your hands on your knees. And then you sit like, you know, I'm not sitting in perfect lotus position or something, right? I'm sitting cross-legged. And what you can do is you can put your hands on your knees. And then you pull yourself into this position. So you have your hands on your knees. You pull your shoulders a bit back. You see how this looks. Like this. You have your hands on your knees. You pull your shoulders a bit back. Just a bit, like not like all the way, but just a bit. You simply close your eyes and then hold it. Yeah, and you may feel terrible. Because you suddenly realize how difficult it is to hold this position. And you realize how weak your body is that you cannot even sit without support. But if you're not sitting in a chair that has a something to rest your back on, you realize you cannot hold your own weight. This is how weak your body is. But also your mind is weak because it's constantly, if you sit in a chair or you sit on the ground like this, you constantly think about, oh, I just want to lean on something. I just want to lean on something. Yeah, that's how weak your mind is. That's how weak your physical body is. So it takes time to practice this. I mean, I've done a lot of working out, but mostly recently I'm trying to do these planks and walking on all fours. Yeah, I'm still working towards doing it like a little bit more, but I've already done enough, I can say that I can at least sit like this and feel like, okay, this is starting to work. Whatever I've done works. Like my back isn't as bad as it used to be. When I do sit like this, I can actually hold it. I can also hold a book like this and read, right? This is how I maintain my posture, and I train my body to become stronger, which means when you like watching movies, this is what you can do. You can just squat. while watching the movie. And when that gets too difficult, because your legs are just killing yourself, then you can stand. And then you stand while watching the movie. And when that gets too difficult, you squat. And when that gets too difficult, you sit cross-legged and try to sit straight like this. And you can do that while watching the movie. Of course, the idea behind these practices is actually to focus on yourself more. But to get there, where you can sit like this and focus just on letting the energy flow, you first have to strengthen your body. And what I found is that in order to get there, I was willing to simply keep doing things like watching movies, but I just changed the way that I did it. For instance, watching porn, I always used to sit in a chair and then I would sit there, and I started changing that when I had a standing desk. And then I was standing doing that, and at one point I didn't do it at all anymore. And that's then the transition, right? You love watching movies, or you love spending time with your phone, then you start doing that less, but with what are you going to replace it? Right? So if you like watching movies still, then try squatting while you're doing this. Just squat on the ground. And this stretches your lower back, it strengthens your legs, and also stretches your legs. And this is the perfect build-up if you want to do like proper yoga exercises later on. Like Ashtanga yoga. It's like very advanced, and for that you have to have strong legs, a strong posture, and an iron will. It's like, that's most what you need, right? So you have to be true and honest to yourself. You have to say, this is actually how I feel, right? If I don't sit in a chair, my back is killing me. Which is why, right? This is my bed. Just want to see how it looks like on the camera. This is my mattress. This is it. This is where I sleep on. And I generally don't really use a pillow. Or I just use the lower end of it so that where my neck is laying is a bit softer. But I sleep on this, which means it's flat. This is how it's supposed to be. Like these beds we use that just take the shape of your body and stuff, that's all nonsense. Because if you have problems with your spine, then it's very bad that the mattress takes the shape of your spine that is having problems, because it keeps it like this. It just supports it in the right place so that you don't feel anymore how bad it is. But if you're laying on a hard and flat surface and it feels uncomfortable, then the only reason that feels uncomfortable is because your back is fucked. And then you have to start doing something about that. Yeah, and what that is, I mean, there are so many ways you can engage with this. Like, you can do a lot of things. Yeah. Some of it I've already shown you in the art of movement. So I don't have to go through all of this. There are some things that I'm doing. You can just look at these videos and pick something you like, because this is not really advanced stuff. This is like really for beginners. Because I basically just started with all this animal movement, and you know, I'm still working myself to the place where I do planks. Yeah, sure, I can do a headstand once in a while, but it's not something I would say I feel really comfortable doing. And one reason I think is also because I'm replacing my iron will with coffee, which probably just has to stop at some point. Alright, so we've got the phone covered, I believe. I mean, if you want to work on that, It's your choice. That's just how I did it, right? I had a smartphone for the first time in 2017, which is where I was like 20 something, 28 maybe, or 27. And what I did was, then I installed WhatsApp and I realized it was taking up too much time of my mind, but also too much time of my day, and that I was constantly concerned with sending messages or receiving them, and that's when I deleted it again. And the reason why I had installed it was because I thought I was helping other people with it so that I can give them updates. But then I decided I'm just going to delete it and occasionally send messages. Because what I realized is I'm not a follower. So I'm not really interested in what people post in these group chats. I don't follow people on Instagram. I'm a creator and I want to create. So I'm not interested in what people write or what kind of pictures they send, because it's all nonsense to me. Nobody needs to send any pictures to anyone unless they have something to say with that. And what people are saying when they send messages on WhatsApp, when they send pictures, is, "I'm lonely, please help me." This is basically what people are saying with sending all these messages. You know, I have problems to be alone. I cannot hold my own weight, and I'm lazy and I'm weak. Yeah, this is what the generation of smartphone children and adults is saying. You know, we are all addicted to anything that helps us to run away from our fears. Whereas I try to go into the fear and then do something with that, right? It's very simple indeed. So yeah, this is probably the point where I actually have to stop with the coffee or just drink my last cup and say, all right, see you again another time. Or maybe never, but I think another time is enough for me. So how I like it actually, if I buy one package, when that is over, I don't buy another one until I really feel like it again. But for that, I first have to make the choice to step away from it for a little while. And because I now know I want to work with love rather than all the fear, I will work with ceremonial cacao and see how that will help me to start more dancing, because coffee doesn't help me with that. I thought it did. It sometimes did, but like in order for coffee to work, I need a lot of fear. You see how people hold on to fear, because fear is their motor. They keep their fear and then they drink coffee and then they can work more. But I don't want fear to build up so that it explodes into a coffee workaholic frenzy. I want to open my heart and have the energy flowing rather than always building it up and then letting it explode. This is what masturbation is about. You build up energy and then you explode it out again. But instead I just want to, just keep it flowing. And that's the difficult part, to keep it flowing. And that's how you can then maintain a loving relationship and make sure that you send always enough love to your wife and your child or your husband, because you keep the energy flowing instead of having these ridiculous on and off relationships that most people have. Right? They go somewhere, they come back, and then they're not sure, can I still love you or not, because I'm so afraid. Ah! What are we afraid of? Yeah, of basically everything that happened to you until this moment. That's what you're afraid of. And that's a manifestation of yourself. Now I'm starting to feel now I worked and something wants to come out on the other way. Right? And this is now an interesting moment. Maybe you saw me. I put the phone under this blanket. I know it's there. But for a second, when I wanted to go to the toilet, I thought about, oh, I can take the phone. And normally it was laying right here. But now it's under the blanket. Of course, I could take it away from the blanket. But what I can also do is, but the phone is there now. I can't reach it. Sometimes I can help myself by, these kind of thoughts. It's like helping me, so I feel like I'm a bit stupid about it. Oh, I cannot get to the phone. It's impossible. I'm still making a conscious decision, but I cannot reach it. Where is it? I don't see it. If I don't see it, I can't use it. This is how you can trick yourself to simply do what you actually want to do. But it's not that you're just lying, it's just that you use your mind to help yourself to just take off the pressure of not using your phone, because there's a lot of pressure. You could say, for instance, with pornography, usually if I feel like this now, I would watch porn. But the problem is, there is no porn. Well, sure, if you go now to your computer and then you enter pornhub.com, then there is porn. Yeah, but if I would wanted to watch it right now, there is none. It doesn't exist. Unless, of course, I create it by going there and opening the page. But until I've done that, it doesn't exist. If everybody would just ignore porn, it literally would stop existing. In the moment where each and every human on this planet, or being, stops watching porn or stops looking for it, it would cease to exist, and all the companies that make money with it would stop. Imagine all these people like Leo Lulu or I don't know who are making money by making porn, suddenly have to face the reality that nobody gives a shit about it anymore. It's like we moved on, and they're like, damn it, what else am I supposed to do? Yeah. And then they're gonna make advertisements, and then they're gonna propagate it again, of course. But still, if we all would simply say, it doesn't exist to me, because it's a money-making business with something that is actually pure and should be about healing and not about making money. Yeah, it should be something to help maintain and stabilize a family, because the husband is channeling energy, yeah? And he's charging up his wife in a very beautiful way, simply by loving her. That's then the idea of sexuality, and not about in and out, yeah, where you like focus on how you look like while you're doing it, because you're seeing yourself through a camera, in and out. That is not what sexuality is. That's just children playing I don't know what. So there's always the emotional part and the feeling part. And that's why when you sit like this, with your mind simply trying to rest, and you may realize there's all kinds of confusing stuff when you close your eyes and simply try to sit like this. Drink coffee, watch your phone, porn, fear. Yeah, things people said to you when you were a child. This still reverberates through you. Whoa. Yeah. Okay, I'm done. Yeah, I just decided. Because I have to go and get rid of this, and this is over. You've heard a lot of stuff, figure it out, you know. Tomorrow is another day. Yeah. Cheers.